Hey, my name's Nick. I scaled my automation agency to 72K a month with one VA, and the entire way that I was able to do this was selling the right systems. As an automation agency, there are a ton of systems that you theoretically can sell, but not a lot that I think you realistically should sell if you want to make multiples in your time. So the purpose of this video is to show you 5 more automations that you guys could sell today for between $1,500 to $10,000. I built all these systems using a mixture of N8N and Make.com, and I'm going to be including all the templates below in the description, so feel free to repurpose them, use them for whatever the hell you want. If that sounds good to you, let's get into it. All right, so I'm going to be showing you these systems in a second. I've built them out in N8N, and then I've also built a bunch out in Make.com. You guys are going to get to see both. But just before I show you guys the actual systems, I just want to talk a little bit about what makes a high-ROI automation a high-ROI automation to begin with. And the reason why we need to cover this, if you think about it, is because our industry moves really quickly. AI is a very intrinsically fast-moving sort of technology. So is a lot of these automation platforms that we're using. And while learning specific systems is great, if you think about it, the systems that I and you are going to be selling today are not necessarily going to be the same ones we're going to be selling a year from now, because business needs are going to change. They're going to be new software platforms that solve these problems. And so what's important is not necessarily learning the exact systems, but the underlying principles that enable you to choose good systems to sell in the future. So briefly, there are 3 components to a great high ROI automation. The first is it needs to be something that produces a clear deliverable. Clear deliverable in this case is a document. It's an email, it's a CRM, it's a line item. I said email twice there, sue me, etc. Essentially, this is something that the customer can actually touch and feel, or can get as close to it while interacting with the computer. The reason why, and I'm going to cover this in a lot more detail in a second, is just because, automations are systems, right? And that might mean something to you and I, but what the hell does that mean to an average small to mid-sized business owner, right? They're hiring us because they're not very technical most of the time. The second is that your system needs to solve a hot button pain point, and this is something that generally just impacts revenue or profit. And the third is you just need a way to template the vast majority of your system. And this is typically done through no-code platforms like N8N, Make.com, Zapier, or copying and pasting scripts, whatever the hell you want to do. So let's chat about this first one, producing a clear deliverable. Essentially, in order for your system to be good, and in order for you to be able to scale it and sell and make any sort of meaningful amount of money with it, it needs to produce something tangible for the client. Tangible in this case means, a document, means an email, it means a CRM system, some sort of asset, some sort of line item, okay? The reason why is because systems are by nature immaterial. They are processes, and software infrastructure, like to a layperson, is very difficult to visualize. Your goal is to turn this from some weird, scary, intimidating black box sort of idea into something your client can actually imagine touching or feeling, something they can see for themselves. These are going to produce immediate results. This is also going to mean that they are much easier to quantify, and then it's going to allow you to claim straightforward wins, which are going to snowball you into being able to do things like get higher ticket retainers and so on and so forth. The reason why I'm harping on this, guys, is because there are tons of systems out there that you guys will see scrolling through YouTube while doing your binge system stuff, and they're great and all. But very few of them are systems that if you're able to put it in front of a client and ask them, hey, do you want this for this much money? Very few of those systems would get a resounding yes. And the reason why is because they're sort of built for, it's almost like they're built for a YouTube audience. They're built for the developer audience. They're not necessarily built for a small to mid-sized business customers that, are looking to have some practical need fulfilled. So these points that I'm making here, if you really want to make money in this industry, these are things that you sort of have to get. Here's some quick examples. The first might be like a PDF generator, okay? So if you build a PDF generator system for the customer, it needs to produce something physically that the customer can touch. So white paper, quote, estimate. Maybe the customer fills out a form. Every single time a form is filled out, they get something. They receive an email and it says, congratulations, you just, generated some new PDF, right? Another one may be a comprehensive CRM that your client can navigate through. Beautiful aesthetics, colors and buttons and stuff like that. This isn't just something that the customer is going to use, okay? It's something that every single person on their team is going to use every day, week, and month thereafter. You get to claim the win every time they're staring at that thing, which, to be honest, is going to be the vast majority of their workday. The last might be like a cold email system that generates an email every time it's responded to, right? Every time that you get a positive response or something, or maybe every time a response comes in, you filter it through AI. You say, is this a good response? Is the customer going to like this? Okay, sweet. If so, voila, I'm going to send them a nicely packaged email. Maybe I'll spend a few extra minutes designing it so the customer feels like they're getting a high quality product that they can see, feel, and touch. So even if your system doesn't need deliverables in order to work, I recommend that you modify your system to include them. And then, ideally you just find systems that produce deliverables as a consequence of their operation. So that's very important. The second thing I want to talk about is it needs to solve some sort of hot button pain point that a business is experiencing. If it's not, you're typically not going to be able to charge anywhere near as much money. And you'll just typically have like a worse go of it during the sales process. You're going to kind of be fighting an uphill battle. So don't fight an uphill battle, fight a downhill battle. They're way easier. Just look at Obi-Wan. So simply put, businesses pay more for solutions to pressing problems. What is a pressing problem? Anything that impacts your ability to generate revenue, save money, or free founder time. These are the three big ones. If a business is struggling with generating revenue and they have like a specific need that you could solve to help them with that, they will pay you a lot of money to have that solved. Same thing with bleeding money, or same thing with the founder running all over the place, feeling extraordinarily stressed and like their life is chaos all the time. Obviously, the more urgent this need, the easier the sale. So the systems that make the most sense to sell are ones that deal with urgent needs. So some examples of this might be, let's say you run like a B2B agency or something, and you have a team of fulfillment staff, and they are currently just waiting around kicking rocks because there's no design work for them to do. That means every single month this business is bleeding a few $1,000s per person, paying them to just sit and wait around. This is a very urgent need. Not only are they losing money there, they're also losing money in opportunity costs since they're not making any new sales to begin with. So, if you could solve this, and at least fill the pipeline. You can think of it as the business. Let's say this, 2 fulfillment staff, and you're paying them $3,000 each. If you can at least fill the pipeline so that they break even on that, you're saving a business $6,000. How much money is a business willing to pay you to save them $6,000? Probably between like $2,000 to $3,000 realistically. Another example might be you're running some B2B SaaS product. Maybe your support team is overwhelmed. They're getting so many inquiries and there's so few people, and because that response times are lagging, and now there's major churn. What your need is more customer support. You need systems that enable customer support, or you need the ability to hire customer support staff. If you could solve this, and if you could reduce their churn by like 5% or whatever, then mathematically you will have increased the lifetime revenue of that MRR by, I think, 5%, right? Like mathematically. So they're making $1 million a month or something. You've just given them $50,000, I think, unless, I'm being dumb. But you're making a lot of money for them. So they're willing to pay you a fraction of that to solve it. Another might be that, you're running some other business. Maybe you are a copywriter and you're invoicing your clients and your invoice processing blows. And that means, you send a lot of invoices and you get a lot of work. Maybe like 20% of them just don't pay you, right? Or they don't pay you on time. If that is the case, your need is a better invoice process. And if you solve that, then you can basically take the portion of the amount of money that is in accounts receivable or outstanding, basically, and then you could charge a fraction of it to solve that problem. So I'm just trying to harp on you guys that, the real problems that you solve that make money in this industry, like when you solve them, you can charge a fraction or percentage of that price. This is called value-based pricing. It's something that I and many high-earning automation companies do. Because every time that a problem is not solved, it costs a business some theoretical sum. When you build a system that solves that theoretical sum, you're basically putting a bunch of money back in their pocket, which is freaking amazing. Okay, need number 3, or rather point number 3, is that you need to be able to build this using templates. Whatever your system is, you should be able to copy and paste 80% of it, then maybe make some minor tweaks. The reason why is because this minimizes your work while also letting you generate a tangible return on client investment ASAP, and then you're also basically minimizing buyer's remorse, which is a really big one. Like when a customer pays you something, especially for consulting or a technical service that they can't really conceptualize the value of, when your customer pays you something, and then they don't get something in return for like a month, that entire month, they sort of have this little buyer's remorse thing where they're like, well, I'm out a bunch of money for the service, but I haven't actually got that, the value that I've been paying for it just yet. And the longer that goes on, typically the harder it is to upsell clients, to get them on long-term retainers. Basically, your goal as an agency, any sort of agency or freelancer, really any service business, just to minimize buyer's remorse by generating a tangible return on their investment. And you do that using templates. If you get a new client, you could build a system for them in 3 days or something that solves the need, starts actually delivering an ROI. That situation, those sorts of situations, I should say, are the ones that get you long-term client retainers and that, get the clients to be absolutely overjoyed working with you. So the cool part about systems is by nature, they are templatable, right? We're dealing with immaterial software products, code, stuff like that. You can literally just copy and paste it, and then voila, you're done 90% of the time. That means that all you ever need to do really is just build a system once, and then you just get to reap the returns on that for however long you're selling that product. The theoretical ideal system just while I'm on that, is a system that is entirely deliverable through API or completely automatically. I want you to think about this. If you are delivering some sort of website building service, hypothetically, and then you sign the deal. When you sign the deal, you trigger a form to be sent to the client that asks all the questions, and then when they fill it out, they instantly get their website. Like the scalability of this sort of business is theoretically infinite. All you need to do is just get as many people in the front door as humanly possible. The back end takes care of itself. I mean, obviously, you're probably going to have some revisions or something, but I think you guys are seeing the point that I'm making. So it's difficult to attain in practice. I've personally never done this. I've gotten reasonably close, but usually just with lower ticket stuff. That's just something to shoot for. Here's some examples again. The first might be a CRM template you can duplicate into the client environment on your platform of choice. That might be, Notion, Asana, ClickUp, whatever. The second might be a series of blueprints that you import into the client make.com or N8N environment that you only ever have to make minor tweaks to afterwards. Maybe you are trawling through Upwork looking for systems. So what you do is you don't just type systems or automations. You actually type like email systems or email automations. And then you have like 4 or 5 templates or blueprints for these systems that like kind of closely match what the customer is looking to. They're not all the way there, but they're like 90% of the way there. Well, you could just say, hey, I'm going to build you out this system. And then instead of you having to build it from scratch, now you at least get 90% of the way there with the template. You basically get to leverage and arbitrage your time. Instead of you doing all of the work from 0% to 100%, you do the work from 90% to 100%. But you get to charge as if you were going from 0% to 100%. The last example here might be a creative brief your client fills out, which triggers a flow that generates a business website, sort of like my API example. Okay, I think we're done with that dry stuff. Let's actually show you what these systems are, because I know that's what everybody here is waiting for. I want you to know that you can build these systems exactly as they are written down, or you can produce variations of them. They fulfill the requirements above, or they're built in such a way that you can modify them to do so. Like you can swap ClickUp to Notion if you're using Notion instead of ClickUp or whatever. I also have talked about and have blueprints for all these systems scattered through my YouTube channel, except for one, I believe. And I'm going to be recording a video of me building that momentarily. And you can also find these blueprints and these templates on my Gumroad. And there are also many that have been built more than once on different platforms. So, if you're working on Zapier or something and the system is N8N, that's okay. You can absolutely just like build the system on Zapier. Look at the blueprint, stare at it, try and grok it, and then just look for like equivalent modules. At the end of the day, all no-code platforms these days are basically the same anyway. All right, so the very first system I'm going to show you guys is a deep personalization system that is built in N8N. As I mentioned, you can apply this to any no-code platform that you want. I'll show you how to do that in a second, but from a bird's eye view, what the system is it's a series of prompts that allows you to customize the hell out of outbound outreach completely automatically. We are going to scrape the data from a web service that allows us to pull email addresses from publicly available profiles. We're then going to loop over it, get LinkedIn profile data from that, feed that into AI, and then add it to a spreadsheet, which we can then tie into some cold email platform like instantly. Now, the reason why this is so valuable is because it's not your run-of-the-mill personalization. It's not just like you're doing the first line of an email like most people do. What we're doing is we're personalizing every aspect of the email that is going out, and we're doing it at scale and en masse. So much so that the person that will receive this email is going to think, holy crap, this guy really did his research. This is going to make it seem almost as if this is not a cold outreach anymore, but like it's warm outreach, because you know everything about the person, their whole career history. You're asking insightful questions that you'd only know if you'd actually like read them, and so on and so forth. So what you're basically doing with this system is you're producing an AI engine that reaches out to a near infinite number of people per day. And your only upper bound on how many people you want to reach out to is going to be the email inboxes, the number that you have using your cold email platform, and then the amount of money that you're spending on ops. Here are the things that it solves. First of all, it solves money. It solves reply rate. It solves leads. These are usually the biggest bottlenecks in any business, and they're the hardest ones to fulfill as well. So right off the bat, this is extraordinarily valuable. The second is it produces a clear deliverable. These are customized leads in a spreadsheet, some sort of cold email platform. It's a CRM. It's all three. And then as a byproduct, delivers replies. So you actually get replies in your inbox, right? And you get more replies than you do with basically any other sort of cold email enrichment system because you're doing deep personalization, but you're doing it well. And I'm going to show you how with some nifty prompts that I've set up here. You can also create templates to make your work easy. You could just copy this into the client N8N environment if you wanted to, or you could just run all this on your own account. You can build this on all major no-code platforms. And you can sell this from anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 USD fixed price. That's with no add-ons. You can also charge an hourly rate to implement this, although I wouldn't recommend that, as well as some sort of monthly maintenance fee. And many people in my communities, which are now over almost 1,400 people as of the time of this video, I have sold systems like this for substantially more than 5,000 USD a pop. Not to mention, if you take into account things like revenue share, equity share, that sort of stuff, this number a lot of the time can double or even triple. So let me actually run you guys through what the system looks like. As I mentioned, I built this out in N8N. I know that most of my viewers are probably more familiar with Make at this point, just because the bulk of my videos have been on no-code or automation platforms. So just to give everybody some context, this is a webhook, which is basically synonymous across all platforms. You are getting an event from some service. The event that we are getting in this case is going to be Appify. Appify, for those of you that are unfamiliar, is a marketplace that allows you to scrape things, essentially. And all you really need to do most of the time is just enter in like the URL of the thing you want to scrape, and you're good to go. So it turns out there's this one scraper called the Apollo scraper, which allows you to scrape basically a big lead aggregator service called Apollo. And then from that, you can extract up to 50,000 leads per search for a price of just $1.20 per 1,000 leads. Most of these are going to have email addresses, and here's an example of the data that you would get. Pretty sweet, right? So all you need to do is you just go into Apollo and you make a search. You say, I'm looking for CEOs in California or something, and then it will actually go and it'll try and pull you every CEO in California, as well as their email addresses, their LinkedIn URLs. It's kind of magical if you think about it that way. From there, what we're doing is we're doing another call to Appify's API, which I'll show you guys when we actually run this thing from start to finish. That just retrieves the actual items that we just scraped. Then we're looping over each of these items. And in N8N, when you loop over, and this is just sort of like saying, for the first entry, I'm going to do all this stuff. Then I'm going to loop over and do the same thing for the second entry. Then I'm going to loop over and do the same thing for the third entry. The reason why we have that is just because of some API limitations, some of the APIs that we're using. Some of the services that we're using, I should say, they have like rate limits, and so we just want to space it out. After that, we have an if, and we're basically saying, hey, if we got the email address, then we can proceed. What we do next is we use another service called leadmagic.io. Leadmagic is a pretty nifty service that essentially allows you to feed in a LinkedIn URL via API. Once you feed in a LinkedIn URL, what you get as a result is you get the entire LinkedIn profile and all the fields, or all the fields that matter, I should say. So I just fed it in my own, which was linkedin.com/in/Nicholas Seraph, that handsome bastard or whatever there. Who dat? And then as a result, I got headlines. I got like an about section. I obviously got a ton of information about, where I work and so on and so forth. And the idea is what we do with that is we feed that into AI, and we basically have AI personalize a bunch of outreach for us and before we add to a Google Sheet. And in terms of what the data actually looks like at the end of it, I have a bunch of data that I scraped here, just 10 records for just a bunch of people in, aerospace or mechanical engineering. And if we scroll over to the right, this is basically what we get as a result. We get subject lines, we get icebreakers, we get elevator pitches, we get call to actions, and then finally we even get a little PS field. And I'll show you what all that looks like in our actual cold email platform. So this is pretty sweet. This is sweet, not necessarily just because it's, built in N8N or, we're doing the personalization, but kind of like we're chaining together 3 or 4 of these different services that independently don't really do anything, but when you combine them all, you can essentially completely automate something that's a pretty laborious part of most people's work. Now, the end result from this, what we get is we get a lead inside of, well, we don't get a lead inside of, but I made this general enough that you could just import the leads into whatever your platform is. But I'll show you, you can get a lead inside of a cold email platform like Instantly that allows you to then scale up the number of emails that you send. And the way that it works is we fill variables like icebreaker, elevator pitch, call to action, same ones you saw a second ago, and then PS as well as subject line. And then in that way, basically all of our emails seem extraordinarily unique, but they still follow a structure, right? One of the main issues with AI being used in cold outreach, I've found, is just that it typically doesn't follow a structure and kind of fall apart. Okay, great. And the last thing I want to do just before we wrap up here is I want to show you what this flow actually looks like. In N8N, we have to just limit the number of items that are coming out the other side, unfortunately. Otherwise, it just gets a little bit weird and can be a little bit much. So let me just do that really quickly. And basically, what I'm going to do is, the way that this flow works is that it looks to see if there's an email address, but because not every record is going to have an email address, I'm just going to connect this little false output to the next module as well. Normally, this would stop if there were no email addresses. This time, it's going to proceed, just so we could see what all the logic looks like. But if you were to run this for yourself, just make sure to take that out. Okay, now let's head back over to Appify. Let's click Start, and let's scrape this puppy. As I mentioned, this is going to be scraping this Apollo resource, but I mean, Appify is amazing. It sort of understands, and their applications allow you to scrape anything that you freaking want. I've used it to scrape Instagram before, TikTok, Twitter, Reddit, right? Used it to make like an automatic newsletter generator, which I'll show you guys in a moment. It is a very, very powerful platform. And if you configure it right, you can do basically whatever the hell you want with it, which is quite nice. Okay, great. So it just found our flow. It's now requesting the LinkedIn profile, doing the 5-column personalization. Let me just show you guys what this actually looks like in practice. It's just going to add that to our Google Sheet. Let me just make sure that this is, sorry. If we go back here, we see that we've added person. And what else we did was we went and we customized the hell out of the outreach. Pretty neat. Damn, that is pretty neat. And then it looks like we've just done that for the second lead as well. And then, this basically just goes on. And I believe I set a wait of, I don't know, how long is my wait? That's like 5 seconds or so. So you can set the wait at whatever you want. I just did 5 seconds because I didn't want this API to get overwhelmed. Sometimes the Google Sheets API, for me anyway, times out. Or rather not times out, but gets rate limited. So the benefit there is, once you have this spreadsheet, all you need to do is you just, go over here, you download it as a CSV, and then you head over to Instantly, which in my case is the service that I'm going to be uploading the emails to. And then you click leads, you click add leads, and you can just drag and drop this in. It's the same thing for Smart Lead and for anything else. The end result is you're going to essentially get an email that includes all of these columns, right? So if I could just show you guys an example on one of them. This email, let me just add a step. This is basically something like the email that you are going to be sending. So this is pretty hyper customized, right? One of the things about this company that they keep on mentioning all the time is their focus on innovation and this and that and that. You basically get to slap that in there. You have a little PS here, which also makes it seem kind of human written. The subject line is customized. If you were to send this to somebody and have multiple levels of personalization, the likelihood of an open and of ultimately them doing something with it is a lot higher. So I'm just going to turn this off because it's just going through and continuing to chug and consume ops in the background. And then I'm going to download this. Then we're going to head back over to the next system. Okay, the second system I want to talk about is a search intent lead scraper. This is something that I did a video on just a few weeks ago, and it's similarly involved in cold email. You're going to see that a lot of things that I build, that I sell and make good money with tend to revolve around some sort of outreach, just because this is typically the most scalable way to employ or apply automation services in such a way that you can make money with them. But essentially what this is a way to scrape leads, but not just scrape leads generally using the same approach we did earlier, but to scrape them with specific intent. So the reason why it's called search intent is because what we're doing is we're actually scraping job listings instead of people. We get these job listings for companies that have listed, hey, I want to hire a sales associate or a business development representative or an account executive. And the reason why we're scraping that is because we know that if a company has put up a job post for account executive or sales representative or something, like the need that they have is they need more leads and they need more sales, and they're willing to literally spend money to solve that problem. So the second that you search for leads with intent like that, you can typically multiply not only the average ticket price of the service that you're selling, but also just make the entire interaction a lot easier. So yeah, this solves money, reply rate, unqualified leads, no leads in the queue, disorganized sales process, unutilized sales team, and ultimately chaos. It also produces a clear deliverable in the form of an email address, which is pretty sweet, and then a series of fields in a Google Sheet or some sort of cold email platform. As I mentioned, you can create blueprints on all major no-code platforms. This one's going to be make.com, but yeah, you could template out the Google Sheets, you can template whatever you want. And in terms of the price, it's very similar to the previous system insofar that we're selling between $1,500 to $5,000 USD. Although I should note that, if you are selling this as a super high ticket service, if you're selling this to like B2B tech companies or one of my community members did this with, I think it was a manufacturing company or something that sold for over $600,000. Not this system for $600,000. They use this system to sell one of their clients a total ticket size of $600,000. You can sell this for substantially more, especially for those big industrial applications. So let me run you through what the system actually looks like. This is built out in make.com instead of N8N, and it again uses Appify to get scraping results, then get dataset items. So very similar flow to what we saw before in N8N. We then search through a Google Sheet. We then add a row if the job is new. And then we also filter the job before searching for a decision maker using a platform called Any Mail Finder. After this, we then retrieve the enrichment results from an email finder, research the decision maker using Perplexity, which is quite neat, generate an icebreaker, which is similar to what I was showing you guys before, just a little more shallow this time, then automatically add it to our database and then instantly. So that sounds pretty well and good, but what exactly does any of this stuff mean? Well, let me show you guys what like an actual result of this would look like. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Google Sheet here. Okay, and what we have as a result is, as you guys could see, we have an ID, we then have a tracking ID, a reference ID, we have the link to the specific job post, and this is from quite a while ago, so I don't know if this is actually going to still be valid. Okay, yeah, it looks like they're still hiring. This company, Tremendous, is hiring an SDR, sales development representative, which is pretty sweet. The title, the company name, company LinkedIn, company logo. We're getting a ton of fields here. The thing that matters to us is this description. What we do is we take this description here and we feed it into AI and say, hey, is this something that we could sell a system to realistically? You give it a list of systems. You say, hey, we sell X, Y, and Z. Is this a job that we could realistically apply to? If the answer to that is yes, then what we do, and as you can see, there's a pretty big database. I got to scroll all the freaking way down to the right. We get their email address, and then from there we also write, an entire pitch basically that says, hey, I dig your mission. It's really cool to see the transition from Bluetooth to NFC within Blue Byte, which is the name of their business and stuff, which is pretty cool, right? Now let me show you what this actually looks like when you add this. What we do after that is we retrieve the result, and I'm just going to run this once to show you. And I believe we need, oh, my bad, I'm actually out of credits, which is why this isn't working. I wonder if I just ran this whole thing, how many of these I'd realistically get. Let me just turn this on and see what happens. Screw it. This is now going to open up a ton, just run like a million simultaneously. And I was just looking for one that actually made sense. You can see that we actually got a CEO of a company. And then after getting the CEO of the company, we researched this person using Perplexity, which is pretty sweet. The end result of this is we got some content about this person. Hey, this person's the CEO and co-founder of this. Here's some key points about him. Then we got a ton of information about this particular person, which is amazing. As I'm sure you can imagine, you can combine this with the icebreaker thing we did earlier. And then we generate an icebreaker here. Then we add it to our database, which was right over here, right? Or actually, I might have a different database actually for this specific one. But anyway, we add it to our database afterwards, which is pretty sweet. And then we also send it over to Instantly, which is cool. Instantly being our cold email platform. So yeah, a lot of moving steps here, but just for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through every module like I did with the previous flow, just because I think most people are familiar with how Make.com works, at least on my channel. Suffice to say, this blueprint will be down below in the description. And the really cool part about systems like this is one of the reasons why I've sort of niched down and I provide a lot of growth systems like cold email. It's because the second that you start selling one, well, one sort of naturally leads into the other. So hypothetically, what if you sell this to somebody for $4,000 or something? And then after you sell them a deep personalization system on top of that, that takes the data that we generated here, takes some additional data that we're generating from maybe like Lead Magic, that API that requests LinkedIn profiles, then we stick it together. Well, now we're upselling them. Now we're selling them two services as opposed to just one. The third system I'm going to show you guys is a YouTube parasite plus content improvement system. So you guys can see this is a pretty long system. I detailed it in one of my earlier YouTube videos, but in a nutshell, what this does is this scrapes YouTube videos. It gets the transcripts of those YouTube videos, then it uses AI to find gaps in that content to make it better. The AI then writes content for you using the tips that we've provided, as well as the source document. Then it lets you repurpose that content for social media, YouTube scripts, and more. We basically do a bunch of content types like Facebook and Twitter and so on and so forth, and then automatically can even post them. So this is a pretty sweet system to sell because, a lot of I want to say that it depends on the sort of business that you sell this to, but SaaS companies tend to like this sort of stuff because they typically have like well-defined competitors whose YouTube channels they could scrape. And they could take video ideas and then repurpose them. Brands tend to like this stuff, like influencers and stuff, because they tend to have like 5 or 10 people in their niche that are doing similar things to them. You can think about me and my competition on YouTube, for instance. We could parasite them immediately the second that they're done recording a video and posting it. I could immediately flip that around and then start creating some sort of new, better content that solves the needs of the market even cooler than they did. But anyway, the point that I'm making is this produces a clear deliverable, social media posts, content scripts. It solves some hot button needs. It's templatable, and you can actually sell this anywhere from 1,500 to 5,000 USD fixed price. I know a lot of people have sold for less than this amongst my groups, but I think that if you go anywhere less than like $1,500 for a system like this, you're definitely underpricing yourself. And you can obviously make tweaks to the system. Now, in terms of how the system works, it starts by triggering an Appify actor to run, and it's going and pulling a specific Appify actor that I think we've not looked at precisely ourselves, YouTube video subtitles or caption scraper. Basically what we're doing is we have a sheet full of YouTube videos to scrape, okay? And you can populate this very easily using another Appify actor if you want. Like there are a variety of systems out there that dump YouTube videos that you scrape into this. But I'm just assuming that you already have one because I didn't want this to be like 17 scenarios long. But basically once you get a YouTube video, every YouTube video has a video ID over here. And what you do is you take that video ID, you search the row, so you get it, and then you feed it into this Appify run an actor module. And this is where you paste the URL or the ID. I guess the URL in this case, not the ID of the video that you want to scrape. This then runs a caption scraper. So then we watch the actor runs. We will get the dataset items. We're going to do a bunch of processing to basically get the transcript into a reasonable format for us. So what I'm doing here is I'm calling GPT-4o with a prompt that basically says something along the lines of, hey, we're generating content based on YouTube transcripts. What I want you to do is I want you to summarize it, write an outline with it, write some suggestions about it, and then output it in this JSON format here. And then from there, we're actually taking the suggestions and using them to upgrade the outline that we generated from a previous step. And this is kind of neat. Most people will try and apply it to the actual content itself. But if you do this to an outline rather than the actual content itself, like if you feed it in an outline and say, hey, this is an outline of content, I want you to make this outline better. Then when you take that outline and then feed it back into AI to have it rewrite the whole thing, you end up a lot more flexible and there's a lot less like plagiarism stuff involved. You're not just like changing the wording here or there. You're actually like doing it with an outline. So yeah, there are a bunch of rules there. You guys feel free to check it out in the template. And then from here, we generate social media posts. The social media posts we start with are just the classic ones. So I think there's Facebook, Brain. Okay, so Twitter post, Instagram, Facebook, yeah, and then LinkedIn. So we generate these 4 social media posts using AI. After that, we then generate a YouTube script using AI as well. So this is a script for a complementary video that uses as input that outline. We then smooth out the script, and then we generate an Instagram post, a Twitter post, Facebook post, LinkedIn post, YouTube script even. Then we update our rows, which is pretty cool. So yeah, this is, obviously pretty involved. If I go over here to, let's go back over here. If I go over here to the right-hand side, you see we have the Instagram post. We have the Twitter post. Oh, we even have the YouTube script. So at the end of it, you get a bunch of content and data. Now, is this stuff that I think would perform really well on Facebook or Instagram as is right now? No, I don't think this would perform really, really well. And the reason why is because I typically always recommend that my clients have like a 2-pass system where they basically have a human in the loop, which Make now has a feature for, by the way, where after it's done creating something, you add it to your queue and then you say something along the lines of, hey, this is ready for QA. Human comes in, it changes the wording a little bit here or there to try and make it a little bit closer to what it is that your brand tone of voice is. And the reason why I do that is because in practice, like while it can be quite impressive, I think, to generate this much content all at once. Usually it does not understand brand tone of voice or style guidelines anywhere near as well as a human being would. But anyway, yeah. And here we have like a big, long YouTube script. So you can see 10 whole pages. Feel free to check all that stuff out. That is system number 3. System number 4 is an automated newsletter production system, which is quite similar in nature, I want to say. Instead of us using Appify to find YouTube YouTube videos and then converting those into, captions and then extracting the captions and doing fun stuff with that. What we're doing instead is we're actually scraping Reddit. So the system takes data from Reddit, specific subreddits that you specify, uses AI to process them and filter them. And then if it's within the realm of what we'd consider to be a high quality newsletter item, it processes them, summarizes them, and then adds them to a nicely formatted newsletter in MailChimp. From here, you basically have a completely automated newsletter production system that you can run as often as you want. You can run this puppy once a day. You can run this puppy, once an hour. Run this puppy once a year. Whatever sort of clip you want to run a system like this on, you are free to. So I'm just going to jump over here and show you guys what this looks like. We'll go to Reddit post database. In terms of the structure of the database, as you guys can see, I just use Google Sheets for everything. It's the simplest database out there. What you do is you feed in a few subreddits. So we fed in some communities called Singularity, Artificial Intelligence, OpenAI. I think there was one more, Artificial Intelligence, like with one L or something. Doesn't look like we got any posts from them though. And then Appify will go and it'll scrape a bunch of these, give us a bunch of posts, right? Which looks pretty cool. What we do is we take these posts and then we use them to generate something here. So we have a second database. This database then creates basically a whole pitch. So I pretended my newsletter was called The Loop. Welcome to Loop, cutting edge AI news explained in simple English. In this week's issue, spicy thing 1, spicy thing 2, spicy thing 3. And then we actually go through and we use the filtering logic that I've set up before, which I'll show you in a second, to write this whole thing, which is pretty neat. This is probably one of the higher value flows, I would say. I'd sell this from anywhere between $1,500 to $10,000 fixed price. I should note that I haven't actually sold this specific system for $10,000 fixed price. I just put the system together myself live on camera a few weeks ago. So I've yet to, but I'm confident that a system like this could probably get even more for the right business, just because the end result is like very curatable content. And you could use this sort of thing for anything. You don't just need to use it for a newsletter. You could use this to like make YouTube short scripts or something. Very modifiable. And it's sort of like the nugget for a variety of systems. In terms of what it looks like, if you just lay it out, we do watch actor runs. We get the data set items, same thing as before. We then filter posts using AI. This is kind of like the crux of this. If you screw this part up, the rest of it doesn't really work. So what we start with is cue Jeopardy music. We're designing a newsletter that contains news and exciting developments in AI. Your task is to filter out irrelevant Reddit posts so they don't make it to our newsletter. Here are a bunch of rules, and then return relevance in JSON using this format, true or false. So what we do is we then add this to the first database, assuming that it is relevant. And then we have a second half to this flow. What the second half to this flow does is however often we want to schedule our newsletter, which in my case was Monday at 6, we then go through, grab all of the posts, and it's not just all the posts, but it's all the posts that have our filter of post status equal new. And this is kind of like an interesting hack that allows you to only pull from posts that are posts that we have not actually created a newsletter for. So as you can see, all these are published on the right-hand side. These ones are all new. So any ones that are new, we then add to that queue. And then we proceed through logically generating headlines and snippets, generating introductions and titles. Then we even go as far as adding them to MailChimp and then sending the newsletter to all of the subscribers of that in MailChimp. So pretty neat stuff. As I mentioned, I haven't actually sold that specific system for anywhere near $10,000, but I'm confident that you could sell systems like this very easily for that amount of money, just given how similar it is to these other systems that have proven success behind them. So the first person in my community is to sell this particular system. Send me over a DM and maybe I'll make a video about it. Okay, great. Last one is a copy and paste automatic hiring system, which I think is pretty badass. I've been using this and selling this for well over 2 years now, or just coming up on 2 years now. And essentially what this is it's a hiring system that eliminates the need for any sort of back and forth with candidates. What we're doing is we're turning hiring from like this very, like one-on-one time-consuming thing into an automated process that uses a form that they fill out to request the job, that then lets you automatically accept or decline. Then if you accept, proceeds forward with a trial request. And then if they do a good job on the trial, then you can, extend them an interview or an onboarding opportunity. So this solves a bunch of hot button pain points. Hiring takes forever. Our margins suck. We don't have enough staff. Everything's always disorganized. Hiring is cost efficient, chaos. As you can see, it's also very pretty, which produces a clear deliverable. We got nice colors. We got names. We got portfolios, links. It's in a CRM. You can template it out by simply copying and pasting a service like this, which is super straightforward and easy in ClickUp, by the way, which is the service that I used to put this together. And then you can also sell it from anywhere between 2K all the way up to 10K. That's no add-ons. If you wanted to do some add-ons to this, use AI to run the first pass of the CV filters, you totally could. You could also charge them an hourly rate to implement it or make tweaks, and then a maintenance or management fee on the hiring system. This sort of stuff crushes with recruitment businesses because recruitment businesses, despite having their whole business be essentially this process, just for whatever reason cannot systematize it. I don't know. So yeah, in terms of what the specific system looks like, this is the CRM template that I put together here. As you see, I've added some documentation called how this pipeline works. So I even go through, and this is for my own business. I actually use this in my business, but just to give you the TLDR, we have a general application form that somebody fills out. When they fill it out, they're added under new applicant. To show you guys what this form looks like, if I go to type form over here, this is basically it in a nutshell. What role are you applying for? Who am I? Because this is to work with my business. definitely do not have that many subscribers. Oh, I must have added an extra 0. That's funny. Well, I guess I'm at 40,000 now. Thank you very much. Contact details, please enter your name and email address below. Portfolio, we ask for portfolio. Location of the person. Start date, or as soon as they'd be able to begin. Weekly availability. And this is kind of a nifty thing that like I do and have done with all of my agencies, because my business partner at the time brought it up and I thought it was brilliant, but I basically see nobody else do it. It's where you ask the applicant for the hourly rate that they want. When you ask an applicant for the hourly rate that they want, they basically, I mean, you can think of this as a little bit evil, but they basically start competing against themselves. And they usually, what we do is we'll say in the job post, like on Indeed or something, average hourly rate $25. They see this and then they'll bid 23. You're thinking, okay, well, 23 versus 25, that's not that much. But it's like, that actually is. It's 8%. You've immediately added 8% to your cost of goods. Sorry, you've reduced 8% to the employment part of your cost of goods or services, which is crazy. And then, if there's somebody that is extraordinarily talented, they pitch a lot of money. And when they pitch a lot of money, that shows yourself that they're very confident and that they believe they're very good at what they do, which is also a positive. So anyway, the way this hiring system works is you will fill out this form. After you're done filling out this form, they're added under the new applicant field for the role that they applied to. So Peter Smith, Steve Licks, and Nick Soraya, for instance. I mean, obviously these are fake names, but they're added under here with all of that data. Then what happens afterwards is you have the ability to confirm and then request a trial. If you move them over to request a trial, what happens is they're automatically sent a templated email with a task that they should finish. Now, if they're a video editor, for instance, which is what I was hiring for here, let me show you guys what that form looks like. Track your time using Clockify or another time tracking app. Your task is to create a short form, 15 to 30 second clip. Here's a brief, quite in-depth brief. Here's a Google Drive link to upload the thing to. And then the way that our company does it is we pay people for trials. We're not assholes. So that's why we ask them to track their time. Send me an invoice. When I send them an invoice, I pay them within 48 business hours by card, Wise, or whatever. So yeah, great system. This is pieced together with not only the CRM here, which I will provide available to you guys as a ClickUp link. You guys feel free to just produce the exact same one, by the way, in a Google Sheet or Notion or whatever you want. So you can see the columns here aren't necessarily rocket science. But it's cool, not necessarily just because it's a ClickUp thing. It's just cool because it's like basically universal approach to hiring that I think extends beyond just systems. All right, that's that for 5 more systems that you could sell today to make between $1,500 to $10,000. I hope you guys appreciated this. If you guys have any questions about any of the systems that I put together, just let me know, drop them down below. I've done videos on the majority of them up until this point. I think I'm probably going to have to re-record the video on the hiring system because I created it, I think, when I was at like 500 subs or 1,000 subs or something, and probably didn't have a lot of reach, so not a lot of people understand the functional utility of something like this. I'm going to be building out the N8N tutorial for that deep personalization system as well. I'm going to be doing that live just to show you guys my thoughts as I put it together. So aside from that, everything else you can find on my YouTube channel, and I'll make sure to include all the resources and everything else you need below. Really appreciate it. If you have any suggestions for future videos or content, I source most of my ideas from my audience at this point. Thank you very much to everybody that's done so far. And I'll catch you all in the next video.